Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to dive in.
You know it. And today, we're going to be tackling a book called Vidas Secas by Graciliano Ramos.
Ah, yes.
And before anyone out there thinks that this is going to be like some super dry literature discussion,
Yeah.
trust me, this book is anything but.
It is really a fascinating read.
Now, this novel, it takes us right into the heart of the Brazilian backlands.
Right into the sertão.
Yes, exactly.
It's a harsh, unforgiving landscape.
It is, yeah, and really reflects the lives of the family that we meet in the story.
Yes, and this family is really at the heart of the book.
Yeah, and we're talking about Fabiano, Sinha Vitoria, their two sons,
Right.
and their dog Balea.
And you know what's really interesting about this?
What's that?
We get the story told from each of their perspectives.
Yeah, even the dog.
Even the dog.
Balea.
It's incredible the way Ramos is able to kind of weave their voices together.
Yeah, and that's actually what makes this book so powerful,
Uh-huh.
right? Ramos is giving voice to the voiceless,
Absolutely.
to these people who are impoverished, they're illiterate, they're struggling every single day just to survive.
And he does such a beautiful job of it.
Yeah, it's really a glimpse into a world I think many of us can't even imagine.
Right.
So, okay, let's actually dive into their story.
Okay.
So this family are sharecroppers,
Mm-hmm.
and they are stuck in this brutal cycle of poverty.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're barely scraping by, constantly forced to sell what little livestock they have for next to nothing.
Yeah, they're constantly indebted to the landowner,
Always in debt.
just barely making ends meet.
Yeah, and Ramos uses these really powerful symbols in the book
Yeah.
to kind of drive home like the just incredible depth of their poverty.
Yeah, like Sinha Vitoria's desire for a bed,
Yeah.
you know, something that so many of us take for granted, is this kind of ultimate symbol of comfort and stability for her that
Yeah.
always feels completely out of reach.
Totally out of reach, and it's just a constant reminder of this this huge gap between their lives.
Yeah.
And the lives of the people who actually hold the power.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as if things couldn't get any worse, a devastating drought hits
Oh, yeah.
this region.
It's like a huge part of the story.
And it's not just some like little inconvenience, right?
Yeah.
This drought forces them
Yeah.
to make this heartbreaking decision
Yeah.
to leave their home
Right.
and go search for a better life.
They have to leave everything behind
Everything.
with no guarantee of finding anything better.
You know, it's just imagine being that desperate
Mm-hmm.
that you have to leave everything you know behind
Mm-hmm.
with no guarantee of what's going to happen.
Scary thought.
It really is. And it leads to one of the most just like gut-wrenching scenes in the book.
Yeah.
They're forced to kill their dog, Balea,
Babalea.
because she's sick and can't travel with them.
It's heartbreaking.
It's such a brutal decision. I mean, it's born out of pure necessity,
Absolutely.
but it really highlights the just brutality of their circumstances
yeah, they're forced to sacrifice something they love
just to survive.
just to survive.
Yeah.
And then there's also this other really important scene in the book, which is Fabiano's encounter with the Soldado Amarelo.
Oh, yeah, the yellow soldier.
Yeah, and this is such a key event in the book.
It really exemplifies the kind of injustice and violence
Yes.
that he faces
On a daily basis.
all the time.
I mean, it's just this brutal encounter. It's physically brutal,
yeah.
but it's also psychologically brutal.
Yeah, it leaves him really wrestling with his own powerlessness.
Yeah, he wants to fight back,
Yeah.
but he knows he can't win against this authority figure,
Right.
this yellow soldier.
Mhm.
And a big part of that powerlessness
Yeah.
comes from his illiteracy.
Absolutely.
You know, Ramos makes it very clear that Fabiano's inability to read and to write makes him incredibly vulnerable to exploitation
Oh, yeah.
by people like the landowner.
He can't even understand the landowner's calculations.
He can't understand.
So he's constantly being cheated.
Constantly cheated and taken advantage of. It's a really tough situation.
Yeah, and it's a vicious cycle.
Hmm?
And Ramos doesn't shy away from showing us just how deeply ingrained that is in their lives.
Yeah, he really lays it all out there.
He does. And here's where I think his narrative style really shines through,
Okay.
by shifting perspectives.
Right.
He lets us experience the world through each family member's eyes,
Even the children.
even the children.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that after the break. So we were talking about the kids
Right.
and how Ramos lets us see the world through their eyes.
Yeah. It's
And we see this incredible resilience in Sinha Vitoria.
Oh, absolutely.
Even in the midst of all this hardship,
Mm-hmm.
she always finds ways to cope and maintain a sense of hope.
Yeah, she never gives up.
Remember, we talked about her carefully counting those seeds.
I do.
You know, this tiny little act, but it speaks volumes about her strength and her determination.
Right. She's always trying to find ways to make things better.
Always strategizing, always trying to make the most of what little they have.
Exactly.
And the children, I mean, their innocence and wonder in the face of such awful circumstances. I mean, it really gets to you.
Yeah, they don't fully understand the harsh reality of their situation.
Right.
And that makes their attempts to make sense of the world even more poignant.
Yeah, and the younger son, he's so fascinated by his father's cowboy gear.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that yearning for power and adventure.
Yeah, he's looking for a way to escape.
While the older son...
He starts asking these big questions.
Right, like about Inferno.
Yeah, like what is hell?
I mean, it's beautiful, but it's also incredibly sad.
Absolutely.
And then there's Balea.
The dog.
The dog.
An entire chapter from her perspective.
A whole chapter from the dog's perspective. I mean, who else could pull that off but Ramos?
It's amazing.
I mean, Balea's perspective, it's this like incredibly unique lens on the family's love and connection.
Right.
I mean, she's not just a pet.
She's family.
She's family. She represents their tie to the land. Their simple joys, just their shared existence.
Our way of life.
Yeah, and the way that she experiences the world.
Yep.
You know, through smells and instincts. It really makes you consider different ways of perceiving reality.
Yeah, it's like stepping outside of our human-centric view.
Totally.
And seeing the world in a new way.
You know, so here we have this family facing just unimaginable hardship.
Right.
Their lives are hanging by a thread.
They're really struggling.
But even amidst all this despair,
Yeah.
there are these moments of joy and connection.
It's true.
That shine through.
Like little glimmers of hope.
Yeah, it's like they find strength in each other in these smallest acts of love and kindness.
Yeah, and that shared excitement they have.
I was going to say that shared excitement about the possibility of a better life.
Yeah, even though it feels so far away.
So far away.
It's still there.
You know, but then there's this underlying theme.
Yeah.
Of the cyclical nature of the drought and the poverty.
Right. It's like they're trapped.
They're trapped in this system that's designed to keep them down.
No matter what they do.
No matter how hard they work, how hard they fight.
Yeah.
And you connect this to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And you realize that Ramos was writing this during a time of intense social and economic upheaval in Brazil.
Right.
So his work is like this really powerful commentary on the plight of the rural poor and the systemic issues that just keep perpetuating their suffering.
Absolutely.
And he's sourcing us, the reader, to confront these harsh realities of poverty and the devastating impacts that it has on individuals and on families.
It's a powerful message.
And then we come to the ending.
Oh, yeah.
So ambiguous.
It really is.
You know, the family's on the move again.
They're leaving everything behind.
Leaving their home, heading towards this uncertain future. Are they breaking free from this cycle, or are they just going to repeat it all over again?
I don't know. That's the brilliance of the ending.
Right.
It's open to interpretation.
It leaves us wondering...
Yeah. Is there a glimmer of hope on the horizon?
Or is it just another mirage?
Exactly.
You know, and it's such a powerful way to end the story because it really underscores this idea that for so many people, escaping poverty, it's not a simple journey.
Right.
It's this constant battle against the harsh realities of their environment, but also against a system that seems designed to keep them down.
And that's something that's still relevant today.
It's irrelevant.
I mean, think about the drought.
Yeah.
It's a natural phenomenon, but it's made worse by climate change, which is a global issue that disproportionately affects the poorest and most vulnerable populations.
So it's like their suffering is a product of these massive forces completely outside their control, combined with these more immediate human-driven systems of exploitation.
Right.
And Ramos doesn't let us forget about those systems.
No.
Like, remember Fabiano's illiteracy. That's not just a personal shortcoming.
It's a direct result of a lack of access to education.
Right. It's a consequence of a society that denies education to the poor.
And keeps them trapped in that cycle of poverty.
It all comes back to the core message of this book, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a story about resilience, but it's also this really powerful indictment of the systems that perpetuate poverty and inequality.
Absolutely.
So much to think about.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Vidas Secas.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating conversation.
What is the biggest takeaway for you?
the power of perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, Ramos makes us see the world through the eyes of those who are so often marginalized and silenced.
Yeah.
He gives a voice to the voiceless.
Even to Balea, the dog.
Even Balea.
Her perspective really challenges our human-centric view of the world.
Right.
It's a reminder that there are other ways of being, other ways of knowing.
And it highlights that connection
Between humans and animals.
Especially in these harsh, unforgiving environments.
It's a call for empathy.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder to approach the world with open hearts and open minds.
To recognize the shared struggles.
And the shared humanity that connects us all.
Beautifully said.
Vidas Secas is a challenging book.
It is.
But it is so rewarding.
It really makes you think.
It stays with you.
And hopefully it inspires us to act.
To everyone listening, we urge you to seek out this powerful novel and experience its depths for yourselves.
It's a journey you won't forget.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Vidas Secas.
It's been a pleasure.
And then we come to the ending.
Oh, the ending.
So ambiguous.
It really is.
The family's on the move again.
Leaving everything behind again.
Leaving their home, heading towards this uncertain future.
Yeah.
Are they breaking free from this cycle, or are they just going to repeat it all over again?
It's hard to say, and I think that's the brilliance of the ending.
Right.
It's open to interpretation.
Yeah.
You know?
It really leaves the reader wondering, right?
Yeah. Is there hope on the horizon, or is this just another mirage?
Another mirage in this cycle of, hardship and poverty.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful way to end the story because it really emphasizes, this idea that for so many people escaping poverty, it's not this straightforward journey.
Right.
It's this constant battle against not only the harsh realities of their environment, but also against a system that's almost designed to keep them down.
A system that's working against them at every turn.
Exactly. And that brings us to, I think this really important point.
Yeah.
Thinking about the drought.
Yeah. The drought.
It's a natural phenomenon.
Of course.
But it's made worse by climate change.
Absolutely.
Which is this global issue that disproportionately affects the poorest and most vulnerable people around the world. And so it's like this perfect storm.
Yeah, it is.
It's like their suffering is a product of these massive forces totally outside of their control.
Right.
Combined with these more immediate, human-driven systems of exploitation.
Exactly. And Ramos doesn't let us forget about those systems.
Like Fabiano's illiteracy.
Yeah, such a good example.
That's not just, a personal shortcoming.
Right.
That is a consequence of a society that denies education to the poor.
And keeps them trapped?
Keeps them trapped in that cycle of poverty.
Absolutely.
So it all comes back to the core message of this book, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
I mean, it's a story about resilience, yes, but it's also this powerful indictment of the systems that just perpetuate poverty and inequality.
And those systems are still in place today.
They are in so many parts of the world.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Vidas Secas,
Well, we're having a fascinating conversation.
I always like to ask, what's the biggest takeaway for you?
For me, it's the power of Ramos's storytelling.
Yeah.
The way he makes us see the world through the eyes of those who are so often marginalized and silenced.
Even Balea, the dog.
Even Balea.
And her perspective. It's so interesting because it really challenges our very human-centric view of the world.
It does.
Right? It's this reminder that there are other ways of being and other ways of knowing.
And it highlights the profound connection between humans and animals, especially in these really harsh environments.
It's a call for empathy, I think.
Absolutely.
A reminder to approach the world with open hearts and open minds.
To recognize those shared struggles.
And our shared humanity.
Beautifully said.
Vidas Secas. It's a challenging book.
It is.
But it's so rewarding.
It's thought-provoking.
It stays with you long after you finish reading it.
It really does.
To everyone listening, we urge you, seek out this powerful novel, experience its depth for yourselves.
You won't regret it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Vidas Secas.
It's been a pleasure.